In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional lands of Sawridge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Councillor Ferguson,
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, first report is the program and event review. Jill, Laura's gonna do it. Great. Come on up, Laura.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. I'm here to report our programs and events that have been happening since about September 2023, as I have just been here for about a year now. Since September 2023, we have added 9 new programs to registered and drop-in programs, 6 registered programs and 3 drop-in programs. 2 of those programs are including FCSS programs that are the Go Girls, and then coming up will be Leaders in Training in the summer. This presents an opportunity for youth between the ages of 12 to 15 to gain leadership and work skills and experiences. Some of the new drop-in programming that has occurred and has been successful is the multi-sport, which allows opportunity for the community to come in and play 2 to 3 sports of their choosing when it is available. This is usually available after school every day of the week. So we have seen great increase in teenagers coming in and having an opportunity to keep active as well as on the weekend. Parent and Top Plan Run runs weekly every Friday. This has been a great opportunity for children between the ages about 2 to 6 to come in and have an opportunity to play with the extra toys and supplies we have. And then Play Zone ran bi-weekly through September to March, which saw an increase in participation throughout the time and duration. We also have had several mini events and upcoming mini events. These include things like bike rodeo, dodgeball tournament that's coming up, Paint the Ice, which we just had on Friday, sponsored glow skates, the sponsored seniors walking track, the Christmas break public skates, and then community cleanup that is upcoming as well. Our major events, Frostfest, was very successful this year. We saw about 650 people come out to the main carnival, and then about another 400 come out to frolic in the park. On top of these events, we've also had one-off workshops that are just about 2 to 3 hours in length. On top of this, we have implemented the recreation program guide that I usually create and design seasonally. We've had a really successful sponsorship program. I've canvassed and received around $14,000 in sponsorships this year, including donations to help offset the cost of programs and allow programs to be low cost or free. In saying that, with all these programs that have been added, to sustain this current programming and any additional programming or mini events, we would have to consider in the upcoming year adding potentially part-time staff. And we would need to look at additional things to accommodate these programs as well, such as storage space. And overall, our numbers for drop-in programming are back to pre-COVID numbers. So in Q1 of 2024, we had 7,762 people drop in and use the multi-rec center for drop-ins. I think that's it.
Fantastic. Councillor Graham.
Just to clarify that 7,762 individual users?
Yeah. From
Wow.
January to the end of March. Correct.
Nice. Thank you. Oh, I'll ask one more. It's
Yep,
like,
go for it.
what is the community cleanup date? So our good friend Joe could maybe put it in the paper.
He has it, but to repeat it, April 22nd to 29th. And then registration is now. So peak groups have already been, I think we have 4 or 5 groups already signed up as of today.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Hughes.
Just more of a general comment from me. I really like the addition of the new programs. I know I personally got to go attend the Go Girl program with the mayor as well. That was a really fun night with some of the younger girls in the community, and I think it was really well done by yourself. I also really enjoyed Frostfest, and it was very busy, and I feel like it is kind of taking on a little bit more of a life of its own every year. You guys continue to grow it. So I really like to see that. And just well done on all the programming that you guys are running, and getting back to pre-COVID numbers is fantastic to hear. So thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Moallem?
Yeah, I was really happy to see what's it called? The playground program last year. I was lucky enough to be at Hilda Eben Park and see that take place, and my kids were absolutely thrilled. I didn't know that we offered that program, and it was really exciting. I think that's doing these kind of things in our community is kind of just adds so much value to young families in this community. Thank you.
Anything further? Okay. Thank you. Counselor Adams?
Motion to accept as information.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Thank you. Okay. Now it's Jill's turn. That's very intimidating with the binder.
I don't need that big of one, but that's okay. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I am here to talk about Emergency Social Services, or ESS. So ESS is the portion of emergency response that looks after the people in an emergency. So it can be activated on its own or as part of the Emergency Operations Center. And there's kind of two, we'll get a little bit more into it, but there's two types of activations that could happen. One would be if we as a community are evacuated, or if we were approached by another community that needed to be evacuated, that they were asking for our help in that. So Emergency Social Services doesn't just cover the response to the emergency, it also covers prevention and mitigation, preparedness, the response, and then recovery. It really only offers the requirement is that it only offers the basic services to those in need. You're looking at the primary physical and emotional supports that people need. We did do a big overhaul of the plan this year. So it was done from taking information from our past plans from the Alberta Emergency Management Agency. So you'll also find in ESS, there's a lot of acronyms. So if I skim over something, then you need to know what it is, please let me know. We are part of the Northwest ESS Partnership. There's the Grand Prairie Emergency Partnership, which is called, Regional Partnership, which is called GPREP. They are a really well-established organization, so we take a lot of information from them. Learned past experiences in some other organizations that do emergency management. We tried to this year, one thing that I noticed when I used to pick up the ESS plans is it's like, establish a plan to do this. So in the middle of an emergency response, it's not really the time to be establishing a plan or making forms and things like that. So we've got a step-by-step plan that, should I get hit by a bus, someone else can pick it up and do it. And that we have those forms. I think that's something Roland and I have learned from the finance side of things is that, yeah, we've scrambled to make forms, but now we have our forms that cover all the areas that we need. So the plan is a structured but flexible plan. So it allows us to respond to any emergency, not just fires, but floods, train derailments, all those kinds of things. And the primary areas that we look at to start off with would be registration, accommodation and lodging, food services, and animal care. So some of the highlights of the updates that we have done are we've outlined roles. So someone like myself, and I don't know if you guys have introduced to Joe, our new director, we would need to have a really good understanding of the plan and all the components of it. Some of our staff that we have, we know what areas they would be looking after, so they would have an understanding of that area. You guys as elected officials want to know what the plan is in case you have any questions, but you're not required to know it inside and out. And residents should know that what the plan is and what it's about as well. Part of the focus too is people should be self-sustaining. It's really, people are supposed to be looking after themselves for the first 72 hours in an emergency. However, that's not realistic. So we step in, but that's where we're encouraging people to have their 72-hour kits to look into their insurance and see what's covered, because a lot of people's insurance does cover their accommodation, their expenses when they're evacuated. So those people could look after themselves, where we would be looking after the people that don't have those things. we've put out a lot of information over the last few months about preparedness. So I don't know if you've seen the messages, but making sure that you're prepared for your pets, prepared for your kids. The one that we've just sent will be sent out this week is about communication, because often in an emergency, your phones go down. So how are you communicating with your friends and family to make sure that you guys are all connected? One thing about ESS, it was emphasized in our last Northwest ESS meeting, we're emergency management, not case management. A lot of the people that we see when we activate reception centers in emergency response are some of those people that have higher needs. We're there to look after their basic needs. If they need higher social supports or psychosocial supports, we're not case management. There are agencies within the province and within the communities that look after that. So that's where it's important to maintain those relationships. We're also focusing on resiliency as a community. So by creating opportunities for people to be independent, we're allowing people to be more resilient and have a better response through the emergency and through recovery. We've also noted some limitations for our plan. We don't have unlimited staffing, so we have to consider that and looking at what's what's required by AHS, and it's actually even a federally regulated thing for group accommodation. We can fit about 180 to 190 cots on each one of our surfaces. So that would mean that depending on the season, we have 2 surfaces that we can accommodate. Also, you can't have food services in where your accommodation is. So that's additional consideration. But in looking at it, there's also normally about 500 hotel rooms available, or not normally, at our maximum available in Slave Lake. However, the oil field is very busy right now. Forestry is busy, so those rooms aren't necessarily available. I was looking back at, for some reason, when I was looking for something else today, it popped up what we had when we had High Level, and we were only able to offer 200 rooms out at that point in time. But that's where we partner with other communities. So at that point in time, when we did host High Level in 2019, we were able to partner with Peace River and High Prairie to offer accommodations for people. We figure that we could sustain within our group of people that currently do ESS about 72 hours. Then we're going to need to ask for additional support. If we operate congregate lodging, which is lodging on cots, we would definitely need some more assistance, because we need to make sure that there's 24-hour staffing support there. We've established some steps to set up congregate and group lodging and food services so that we can follow those steps and put them in place. Again, what we've learned from emergencies is we can have a great plan. Emergencies throw lots of different things at us, but at least if we have a plan, it's easier to know what we would do in certain situations. The consistent messaging from everyone that you talk to is that animal care is very complicated, but the direction that most communities are going and what we would recommend to do is having animal care duties placed back on the owner. It's their pet, it's like their child. So you can't just dump your child off somewhere when there's an emergency. So you can't just dump your pet off and expect that we're going to look after them. The approach would be to, as best we can, accommodate pets with their owners in accommodation. But if that's not realistic, then we know that there's boarding kennels or areas where we could set that up for people, or else there's also third-party organizations that do support that as well. So depending on the situation, unfortunately, last year when we were responding, everyone else was responding. So sometimes those third-party organizations go to the biggest disaster, but that would be our approach, is to, we might provide the space, but the owner is responsible for the care. And if there is not care provided within our forms that they would sign off on, it would be that, you know, you're surrendering your animal for lack of care through that whole process of things. Activating ESS. So generally the way it works is that if it was the town, the Director of Emergency Management, the DEM, would determine that evacuation is needed and would contact or activate the ESS coordinator as part of the EOC or the Incident Command Post. The ESS coordinator, in coordination with whoever they're reporting to in the structure, would determine if we need to move out of town or if we could just need to evacuate a portion of the town and where people are going to go. One of the models is that you might go somewhere and operate ESS for our community in a different community. So we would determine if that's something that we're going to do or if we're requesting outside assistance. We would need to make sure that memos of understanding and delegations of authority were established if we did ask someone else to run on our behalf. If we're accepting another community, it's essentially the same process. However, a lot of the time, communities will reach out directly to the ESS coordinator because there's kind of a network of those people. So then that person would contact the DEM and go through the similar steps there. But if the community is requesting that we operate it, then we have to make sure that we've got our butts covered with MOUs and delegations of authorities. If it's an activation for another community, it doesn't necessarily have to have the EOC or the incident command post initiated. It often is because there's procurement and things that need to happen, but sometimes it's kind of in like a top down structure. So there's a number of different ways that it can make work, but that's what you decide when you get activated. And then just a couple of things that have come out of the Northwest ESS meetings and the Alberta Emergency Management. So there's currently a movement across Alberta in emergency social services to establish provincial levels of service. Grande Prairie is putting a resolution into Alberta municipalities on behalf of all northern communities to advocate for a standard level of service for the provincial government, looking at basic survival needs versus discretionary costs. What they're finding is that people are shopping for the most desirable community when they're evacuated. And we definitely found that when we had High Level and then Wabasca got evacuated as well. People were wanting to come to us versus go on to a different place. So they're trying to have a standard level of service. Obviously, we want to be a good community and a good host, but we also can't put ourselves out or accept more people than we can handle. They're also finding that many communities are on the hook for extra costs. So they said that they're within the first 12 hours of having the Northwest Territories evacuated to Grande Prairie, they had massive hotel room damage. And so who's responsible for that? So trying to just flush some of those things out so that the taxpayers are not on the hook for that, because it often is the host community that is responsible for those things. It's been clarified that hotel room damage won't be covered under the disaster relief program. Hotels won't cover it under their insurance, and it likely won't be covered under ours either. So it's a cost that's for us, unless you cover it under an MOU, saying that that community is responsible for paying for it. So it's just a thing that lots of communities are running into. And then the other big messaging coming back is that all of our costs need to be tied back to evacuees. So for example, if you're purchasing dog food for a dog because that person can't do it, which evacuee is that for? You need laundry services, who's that cost going to? Which evacuee is that for? Anything that's purchased that has residual value. So if we bought dog kennels that are going to be used by our pound afterwards, that's a residual cost. We won't get reimbursed for that full value. So just some things to consider. The overall message thing that they came back with, which I know a lot of communities were upset about, which is why they're advocating for the standard level of services, to ask yourself, are you okay with not getting reimbursed for this? So just a consideration when we're taking people. We want to help out, but we also need to make sure that for one, we have the capacity, and for two, that we're not on the hook for a lot of costs. The big thing that's happening that we all have seen and could be something that's happening this year is that, there's lots of communities that need to be evacuated. So often things are not, you're not crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's when it's happening. You're just trying to make it happen. So trying to have some better processes in place before it happens. So yeah.
Fantastic. Councillor Ferguson.
So when you're talking about costs, there's obviously lots of moving parts and things to consider here.
Yeah.
But has there been any discussion about reimbursement for lost interest that a community would have earned on deposit? Because if we're out, for example, a couple $100,000 in expenses and we don't get reimbursed the interest, it's still a net loss to the community.
It is somewhere in the information how the interest works.
Okay.
But I can't recall off the top of my head. So I can definitely get that information to you. But
thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Adams.
I'd like to make a motion to accept as information.
Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? That is carried. Thanks,
Okay,
Jill.
thank you.
Very thorough. Appreciate that. Your turn, Kush.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The purpose of this report is to provide recommendation to Council on awarding the Hilldyburn Park Asphalt Trail Project. The 10-year Parks and Green Spaces Plan developed in 2017 recommends the installation of trail paths to connect the east and north access points from adjacent residential streets to the park amenities and the parking lot. Currently, there is foot traffic that accesses park amenities through the public walkways from adjacent residential street. This can be evidenced by the worn trails that stretches from parking lot area across the park to the east and the north. The plan would be to install the paved trails to connect the parking lot, all amenities, and carry those trails across the park to the access points or the walkways to the east and the north. Attachment 1 shows the worn trails that could be seen through the park. Also, the secondary scope of the project is to undertake trail repairs that were identified in 2022 along the trail systems throughout the town. The trail repairs are essential in improving potential safety hazards and increasing the overall lifespan of the asset. Council approved a capital budget of $195,000 to complete this project in 2024 based on administration's estimate. Administration recently concluded the task of requesting cost proposals from interested proponents. Upon closing, we got 3 cost proposals. Rural Concrete submitted proposal of $152,076 excluding GST. Pavit Construction submitted cost proposal of $110,512.24 excluding GST. And E-Construction submitted a cost proposal of $181,313.60 excluding GST. All 3 proposals were deemed compliant as per requirement in the RFP document. Evaluations of the proposal was done based on mandatory document requirements were must. Price was based on 50%. Past experience on similar project was 40%. Proposed start and completion date was 10%. Based on that, Pavit Construction scored the maximum score and is recommended for award. Proposal evaluation sheet can be found in attachment 2. The layout of the proposed trail will be carefully selected to ensure that additional park amenities can be incorporated without compromising real estate at a future time. Council may choose to proceed with the proposed project by awarding the contract to the recommended proponent or do not proceed with the proposed project at the time. The approved fund in the amount of $195,000 for this project will be covered through CCBF, which is Canada Community Building Fund, formerly known as Gas Tax Fund. Based on the received cost proposals, the project is expected to stay under budget overall. The remaining unused budget allocations will be utilized to fund other projects. The installation of the trail will be done according to our infrastructure standards. Communication will be shared with park users before any work begins. The contractor will also set up barricades and fencing to provide safe user experience to park user while the project is progressing. Addition of trails will add an amenity to this park by further improving the accessibility and overall experience to the park users. Administration recommends awarding the Hilldyburn Park Asphalt Trail contract to Pavit Construction in the amount of $110,512.24 excluding GST.
Councillor Ferguson.
So just a couple questions here. So we haven't determined the exact path that it would take yet.
It would be more connecting like,
Because
because our aerial image dates back to 2018. It doesn't show the new upgrades that we did last year.
Yeah.
So we will go out with a contractor and we will lay it out on the grass before we do any work.
okay,
So probably the very far east connector, which is through 9th Street will be connected and then through the Parkdale Way will be connected. So the north and the east will be connected.
okay. And may I ask, was there any discussion about using the photo radar funds for this rather than the gas tax fund?
That funding information is the one I got from Roland, so I can touch base with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Just to clarify on that, so I can understand it, you're saying that where are you gonna run that north connection piece straight in? Like straight south from there, or are you coming at where that trail is, where it kind of angles up to 9th?
So imagine trail goes from parking lot all the way to the
9th
east,
Street,
right?
yeah,
Yeah, 9th. And then there will be a perpendicular going. the
perpendicular to
Parkdale.
it, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
And then just to clarify, because I had some people questioning, it will be like asphalt, much like it is in Sugar Park.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
You have to remember too, there's an extra playground that's not showing up in this map, right? And even your splash, that's not the actual splash
Yes.
park. Yeah, so a little bit of amendment, but essentially you're connecting the three points there. Right? So there might be a little bit of a curve or something to bypass or something, but
Guess what I was getting at is the actual foot trail runs from the north side to 9th Street. Right, it cuts right
Yeah.
across that
yeah,
entire
no, it
field.
won't be, it'll be perpendicular. Likely, the more cost effective way will be just running a shorter path perpendicular to the
And
east
then we
west.
can
right?
use that extra space to build soccer fields or something in the future,
Something
like,
else, yes.
right? Yeah.
That's what I want to get, yeah.
Yeah.
That's-
Maintaining that there's extra space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Council Ferguson.
I'll just make a motion here. Move that council awards the Hilda Eben Park Asphalt Trail contract to pave a construction in the amount of $110,512.24 excluding GST.
Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Next, moving on, the purpose of this report is to provide our recommendation to council for 8th Street Northwest Water Main Replacement Project. The project includes replacement of existing 6-inch diameter ductile iron water line with the 10-inch PVC line. The line was originally installed back in 1970s and is at the end of lifespan. This existing ductile iron section of water distribution line has failed more than 6 times over the last few years. During recent repairs, the exposed line sections were examined and determined to be in very rough condition is very likely to fail in the near future. With every break, the services are disrupted to the nearby industrial lots and more operational efforts and cost is spent to repair. The project was approved by council in 2023 capital budget. However, during detailed design stage, initiated in early 2023, it was recommended to upsize the water line from 6-inch to 10-inch to meet fire flow requirements in the industrial area. Upsizing the line increased the estimated cost of the project, which further required budget adjustment. During 2024 budget discussion with council, the budget requisition was revised from 350,000 to 750,000 for this project. Administration concluded the bidding process at 4 p.m. on March 28th this year. 5 bids were received upon closing. The bids were received from Grayson Excavating in the amount of $675,184.67. Pidernis Incorporated in the amount of $736,680. Park Paving Limited in the amount of $971,550.80. GS Construction in the amount of $1,069,025. And E Construction Limited in the amount of $1,100,482. Those numbers are before GST. All the bids were found to be compliant in nature with respect to mandatory requirements. Bid evaluation was completed based on the following criteria as listed in the bid documents. So schedule was based on 10%. Past performance on similar project was 30%. Key team members was 20% and the price was 40%. Based on evaluation, the highest evaluated bid was submitted by Grayson Excavating Limited. Grayson Excavating Limited has been in business for 18 years and is a general contractor with their head office located in city of Lacombe. As a general contractor, Grayson Excavating Limited has completed various underground construction projects with similar size and scope to 8th Street Northwest Water Main Replacement Project within the past 5 years. The project has been located throughout Alberta, including town of Coronation, town of Olds, and town of Wainwright. Additionally, they have successfully completed a project with town of Slave Lake and Associated Engineering as an underground subcontractor on 5th Ave Northwest Road Rehab Project back in 2018. The town also reached out to town of Coronation, which provided a favorable recommendation with respect to the contractor. Grayson Excavating Limited proposes to mobilize on June 10th and demobilize in July 12th, completing the project in approximately 32 days. Council may choose to proceed with the proposed project by awarding the contract to recommended contractor or do not proceed with the project at the time. Anticipated project costs are as follow. So the recommended bid amount for Grayson would be $675,187.20. will carry a construction contingency of 5%, which is $33,579.36. The contingency is low compared to our other typical projects, which is like 10%, is because the street is all gravel and it's fairly straightforward project. We don't oversee any issues doing the project. Engineering and material testing will be done with a budget, set budget of $41,233.37, bringing the total anticipated cost of project to $750,000. Approved capital budget of $750,000 was provided from water and sewer reserves to complete the project this project in 2024. All the proposed construction work will be completed as per infrastructure standards. Once the contract is awarded, a notification letter will be sent out to notifying of the construction timelines and other necessary details to the affected lot owners. Timely notification will also be released through our website, social media, and warrant alerts. Administration recommends awarding the construction contract for 8th Street Northwest Water Main Replacement to Grayson Excavating Limited in the amount of $675,184.67, excluding GST.
Counselor Adams.
Just to clarify, then us choosing to go from a 6-inch to a 10-inch had more to do with what current code standards are and fire requirements
Yes.
than any other.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
Counselor Adams.
I'd make a motion, move that council awards construction contract for 8th Street Northwest Water Main Replacement to Grayson Excavating Limited in the amount of $675,184.67, excluding GST.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried.
Okay, moving on next. The purpose of this report is to provide our recommendation to council for 9th Street Southeast Waterline Replacement Project. The project focuses on replacing existing water line on 9th Street between 11th Ave and 12th Ave Southeast. The line was originally installed in 1970s and it's at the end of lifespan. This existing ductile iron section of water distribution line has failed consistently over the last few years. During recent repairs, the line was exposed and it was determined to be in rough shape and is expected to fail in the near future again. With every break, the services are disrupted to the adjacent residential lots and more operational costs are spent to repairs. The water master plan does not identify any water flow or fire flow deficiencies, so there is no requirement to upsize the water line in this area. The existing line will be replaced with an 8-inch diameter line as per our town current standards. So our town current standards for minimum distribution line diameter is 8-inch. The approximate length of replacement is 95 meters. During 2024 capital budget discussion with council, budget requisition of $650,000 was approved for this project. Administration concluded the bidding process at 4 p.m. on April 4th this year. 2 bids were received upon closing. E-Construction submitted a bid of $482,308 and Pidernis submitted a bid of $554,786. Both the amounts are before GST. Both the bids were found to be compliant in nature with respect to mandatory requirements, and bid evaluation was completed based on 10% on schedule, 30% on past performance on similar projects, 20% on key team members, and 40% on price. Based on evaluation, the highest evaluated bid was submitted by E-Construction Limited. E-Construction was established as a construction company back in 1954. They are based out of Edmonton, has a regional office in Slave Lake. As a general contractor, he has completed various underground construction and rehab projects with similar size and scope. In the last 5 years, the projects have been located throughout Alberta, including Vegreville, Slave Lake, Barhead, and Fort McMurray. Additionally, they have completed several projects with Town of Slave Lake and Associated Engineering, including work on Slave Lake infrastructure replacement program, which was after 2011 wildfires. Recently completed 3rd Street Southwest Road Rehab project. Based on our previous project experience, E-Construction has done reputable work and has capacity to complete the scope of the work as defined in the contract. Council may choose to proceed with proposed project by awarding the contract to the recommended contractor or chose not to proceed with the proposed project at the time. So anticipated project cost for this project are as follows. Construction would be based on the recommended bid, $482,308. We'll carry a construction contingency of 10%, which is $48,230.80. Engineering and material testing will have an allocated budget of $64,000. So total anticipated project cost is expected to be at $594,538.80, which is expected to stay under budget. The unused budget amount post-project completion will be allocated back to the funding reserves. All the proposed construction work will be completed as per our infrastructure standards. Once the contract is awarded, notification letter will be sent out notifying of the construction timelines and other details as necessary to the adjacent residential homeowners. And also timely notification will also be released through our website, social media, and warrant alerts. Administration recommends awarding the construction contract for 9th Street Southeast Waterline Replacement Project to E-Construction Limited in the amount of $482,308 excluding GST.
Counselor Adams.
Yeah,
Wait,
move that
on
council
discussion.
awards construction contract. Excuse me, sorry. For 9th Street Southeast Waterline Replacement to E-Construction Limited in the amount of $482,308 excluding GST.
Any further discussion from council? Call to question, those in favor? And that is carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kush. We'll move forward into our CAO update.
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, before I get into our CAO report, which you have before you, I'd like to introduce our new Director of Community Services. So in the audience tonight, we have Joe Dixon, who's joined us. I think he's on his 3rd week this week, I believe so. Joe joins us from Edmonton and brings a wealth of experience and knowledge and as a big compliment to our team. So I thought I'd just introduce you formally to him and welcome him officially aboard to the town.
You want to bring them up so the people at home can see them?
We would have to turn around.
That's right, he's
for
there.
that camera.
I'm sure Joe will do a full
Joe
front
is-
page,
Joe is-
front page
Joe's in
report on
line
him
with
and
the
the rest of the town can,
This Joe.
anyway, so again, I'm just going to hit some of the highlights as I go through the report, but you can feel free to ask any questions that I do miss. Under our corporate services communications branch, key projects, so they're continuing our work on our website. Redesign is ongoing. The land use bylaw and municipal development plan engagement page has been launched with a survey off our engageslavellake.ca website or platform. Under economic development, our rural renewal stream update. Today we have 49 employers participating, so an additional 12 since last reported. 10 of those 12 were from High Prairie, who was a recent partner that signed on with our program with us, and 2 from Slave Lake. 88 letters of endorsement have been issued. Again, 12 of those for High Prairie, 6 for Slave Lake. State of the Lake and Spark the North. So again, our economic development department is working and hand in hand with Community Futures here from Slave Lake for the planning of that event. Panel questions have been drafted, invitations sent, and there's been a number of posts on social media advertising the event and inviting members of the public to come and attend. Economic Development signed a contract with Truly Creative Marketing for the summer 2024 tourism campaign. So the campaign is scheduled to launch earlier this year, May 1st, 2024, based on feedback received from council and contract availability. Under our Human Resources Department, in terms of recruiting, I introduced Joe tonight as our new Director of Community Services. We've also filled some detachment clerk positions, summer day camp coordinator, travel counselors have all been positions filled. Advertisements, I believe, have started this week for day camp counselors, park activity leader, which I believe Councilor Moreland was talking about tonight. And we are on the final stages, I would say, of our municipal intern interviews and securing our intern for this upcoming period. Other areas that the HR department is currently planning for the involvement in the National Indigenous Peoples Day has started. So they've been meeting with Métis Nation Region 5, upcoming here in April. Our IT department is continually to and support our ERP project. There's continued work still happening with our finance module, which is likely going to take the majority of this year to complete. So that's the largest portion of that project and the biggest module or the biggest piece to date. So work continues on that project. In terms of cybersecurity, the town has started the process of sourcing cybersecurity insurance for the town. So the IT baseline requirements for cybersecurity insurance will help guide our future IT-related cybersecurity strategy and how it will be implemented in the town. So we're better prepared and reduces our insurance premiums. In regards to our shelter update, 121 individuals registered as homeless in the last 5 months, with 9 new individuals in the past month. Our average intake for the shelter is 13 clients daily. In terms of programming that's being offered, the focus is again on recovery, housing transitioning, and referral programs connecting residents to provincial resources. Some of the things that have been achieved to date. So they've continued program facilitating birth certificates and Alberta ID acquisition. This started in January. We assisted processing 3 Alberta Support financial applications, procured and paid for 4 birth certificates and ID cards, obtained 1 Alberta Health card for a resident, provided transportation assistance with 4 bus tickets, clients transferred to supportive housing in Edmonton. So I think it was 1 client, sorry. Issued 5 confirmation of address letters, purchased a new professional clipper for free haircuts, handled 2 overdoses without fatalities, transported 16 individuals with shelter bus for in-town services, continued shuttle bus appointment service for residents' essential needs, facilitated applications for seniors for Blue Cross coverage, connected Alberta's residents to Alberta's virtual opioid dependency program, and again, continue to offer shower and laundry services. Our finance department auditors were on site March 27th to 28th, currently working on final adjustments for the year end. A report is expected to be brought to council on April 23rd for the finalized 2023 year end. Assessment notices have been mailed out to all residents, and we're working with ratepayers who have properties listed on the April 10th tax sale auction. Of note, there was 9 new business licenses issued. I think that should say 2024. I think that's an error in the report. In terms of projects, there's been a number of contract awardings both tonight and in previous meetings, so I won't talk about those too much. Renovation work in the MRC due to the water leakage is all complete except a few minor deficiencies. So a further update will be provided once all costs for repairs are provided by the insurance company. Our planning and development department have completed a new draft policy for vending carts, sideway cafes, sidewalk sales, and parking patios, meaning vending on public lands policy, which fulfills a task coming out of the downtown and Main Street area plan. So this policy is going to be reviewed by the management team and will be presented to council and should be in place by this May. So look forward to that coming to council. And they're also working on a report to council regarding restrictive covenant and potential options for Fournier Place, as well as potential development concept. So lots of work happening there. Fire department total calls for date as of April 3rd were 167, which was up from 140 and 20. So 27 calls, I guess, since March 6th of last month, or up 118 from March 6th of 2023, or up 49, sorry. In terms of some of the activities in fire departments, so all students and staff have participated in making a promotional video for the Northern Lakes College, Lakeland, and Lesser Slave River Fire Regional Program, Fire Services Program, which could be released at the student graduation night on April 12th. A recent project between Tim Hortons Smile Cookie and the Lesser Slave Fire and Rescue Society was completed. A passenger bus was acquired through the donation, converted and outfitted for firefighter rehab and command. This unit replaces a trailer that is now the new search and rescue trailer, and the old search and rescue trailer will become a hazmat response trailer. So this new or essentially used bus was donation funded, and minor operating costs will be covered with no increase to current fire or search and rescue operating budget. This unit allows one member to respond to incidents in non-emergency mode. It is not set up with emergency lights or sirens. The old trailer required a truck and crew of at least 2 members, which is no longer required. In our community services department, under the aquatics, St. Patrick's Swim saw 60 people attend. And this weekend, they are hosting a National Lifeguard Certification course being offered this weekend, and I believe the 26th to 28th. They have 5 candidates registered to take that course. Under our facilities and parks, planning is started for the upcoming 2024 capital projects, including securing quotes with contractors with our project manager. And our FCSS, there's a call for our community grants with all grant applications being due April 30th. That is my highlights for you, pending any questions.
Counselor Ferguson.
So just wanted to touch base here on Devonshire beach cleanup and grooming. Do you know when this is being planned for with the MD? Because I just wanted to make sure. Oh, yeah, sorry. Just wanted to make sure this is on the radar, because before we know it, we will be approaching May long weekend, and that's pretty much the kickoff for our summer tourism season.
So I have participated in a meeting, kind of group meeting with us, the MD and Parks. We did discuss that. I don't know if a date was set, but the idea was, the intention was to have that completed prior to the May long weekend. So that was still the goal. I'm just trying to see if an actual date was set in my calendar here. I don't believe one was set, but I can tell you that it is on the discussion. And I believe there's a meeting between those 3 parties happening again prior to the end of April here. So I don't think a date's been identified yet for us to participate, but we have committed to participating with the MD and Parks to facilitate that cleanup.
Well, it sounds like you guys are on it, so just wanted to.
We're on it.
Please, thank you.
Any further questions? Counselor Gramlich.
Let's make a motion to accept.
Oh, Andrew might have a question.
Oh, Andrew.
Oh, no, Andrew doesn't have a question. Never mind. He was voting early. Never mind.
Can you say something though, Andrew, so we know you have a voice there?
Yes, I do have a voice.
Perfect. I was just gonna make a motion that we accept the CAO update as information.
Okay, any further discussion? Call to question those in favor, and that is carried. Management task list.
Guess that's me again. So you'll have the management task list before you. I think there was only one minor change in regards to the industrial, or one item that was completed. I'll double check. You heard in my report today, I guess the only other, maybe it wasn't included on here, but there is in regards to National Indigenous People Day. So there has been some initial discussion in regards to the town's involvement in that day. So there has been a meeting set with the local Métis office. Other than that.
Counselor Ferguson.
So I don't know if this is a spot to do this in or not, but I've been getting a little bit of feedback on industrial crime from businesses in the industrial area. So with the warmer temperatures, we typically see an uptick in crime. So that being said, I'd like to give notice of motion to have a discussion about industrial crime prevention measures at our next meeting.
Okay, motion on the floor. Any further discussion?
Well, it's not a motion. It's
Motion just to add to the
it-
task
it-
list. We
it-
need to motion it to add on there?
It'll be on the next agenda now that I've given notice of motion.
Okay, perfect. I was already ahead. I was looking at the date motion made on here, so.
So sorry, just one question for clarification. Are you adding an agenda item for discussion, or are you asking administration to prepare
An
something?
agenda item for discussion, just kind of an
Okay,
informal discussion.
So
at
that
our
wouldn't
next
necessarily be on a task item. It would just be a motion. Just a general motion, but it wouldn't necessarily be a task for administration.
So just a request. Okay,
Just a request. Yep.
perfect.
You still need a vote though.
We still need to motion that?
Yeah.
Okay, I was told I didn't need to motion it, so then I got very confused. Okay, we do need to motion this. There is a motion on the floor then from Counselor Ferguson to bring that to the next meeting. Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Counselor Adams.
Motion to accept the April 2024 task list as information.
Any further discussion? Call to question those in favor. And that is carried. Do we have anything for question period? I think that pretty much covered it through the, yes. Okay, then we will move through to the committee minutes. First up is intermunicipal. So at intermunicipal, we discussed the application for Fire Guard grant funding to be applied for by the MD. That grant is due this week and it is going to their council tomorrow. for approval and then submission this week. We also discussed the Alberta Indigenous and Municipal Policing Transition Grant. We were approved for this grant on behalf of the town of Slave Lake and the MD for $30,000 each. So we will be engaging a firm to go ahead and proceed with that grant. And then we also discussed Highway 88 and an update that they were looking at the funding for the engineering phase and just how that would move forward. And that is it for intermunicipal watershed.
That's me. So for the watershed, the GOA staff will be joining our May board meeting to share information and modeling of current lake levels, low flow monitoring on the river, and the roles and responsibility of GOA and local stakeholders in regards to the low flow response. At this meeting, the municipal and industry reps will be invited, so stand by for more information on that. The High Prairie Gun and Sportman Show is April 20th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and April 21st from 10 to 3:30 p.m. And there is a bursary deadline of May 1st. So the Lesser Slave Watershed bursary is, the deadline is May 1st. So if you're interested, please apply before May 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Alberta North Central Alliance. One of the items was that there was discussion in support of a regional tourism model for Alberta North Central. There was further discussion with the work with Indigenous Tourism Alberta, and there was an application for funding for Indigenous Tourism Alberta's cultural awareness training. There are items identified that there is a need for a tourism opportunity assessment, as well as a mental health and addictions needs assessment and a regional workforce and business attraction study. So those three items are some of the key strategic priorities for Alberta North Central Alliance. With regards to mental health and addiction, the study was to, the focus, I guess, is to provide adequate healthcare resources across the region through a committed and sustainable service model, build capacity for emergency response, work towards a new model of service delivery with AHS. So the purpose of these studies is to develop specific advocacy items so that the Alberta North Central Alliance is able to have the data to back up requests for additional support. So all of those items were discussed and a contract will be put forth for someone to complete those three needs assessments. And then I'm going to continue with the Lesser Slave Lake Regional Housing Authority unless there's any questions on ANSA. Okay, as I see none, at the Housing Authority, we completed our annual audit. There was also a review of the 2 to 5 year capital maintenance plan. There is an increase from 55 to 57 overall on the wait list. That's an increase of 1 in seniors self-contained and Vanderwill Heritage Place. So that went from 6 to 7. For social housing and Heritage Village, the wait list went from 49 to 50. These have remained relatively stable, growing by maybe 5 total over the last year. The arrears for 2024 are $3,244.92 so far, and bad debt for 2023, which includes lost rent and forfeited damage deposits and repairs and maintenance, was just over $40,000. Currently, there is 12 units undergoing repairs. These are expected to be completed by the end of May and then will be made available for clients on the wait list. This does seem to be a bit of a revolving door, though. As clients move out, there is generally a significant amount of damage, and it takes a few months for these properties to be repaired back to livable condition. And Tri-Council Health. That is also me. We had an informal meeting last week. Basically, we resumed the discussion of advocating for the OR to reopen. It sounded hopeful, but that is one of the top priorities of the hospital so that our anesthesiologists are able to stay and work in the community. One success is that the Find a Doctor website for Alberta previously didn't list Slave Lake as one of the communities because it only listed primary care network providers, and we are the AHS family care model. So that has been corrected now, and when you look up Slave Lake for finding a doctor. So for people new to our community, it does list the Slave Lake Family Care Clinic, as we do have doctors that are accepting patients. So if you do not have a family doctor, you are able to find a family doctor in Slave Lake, as there is sufficient capacity. And now we're on to tourism.
Hey, so in the Slave Lake Region Tourism Society world, we are hard at work planning our upcoming event, which is Beach Fest, of course, happening August 10th and 11th out at Devonshire Beach. We will be holding our next kind of public committee meeting sometime the beginning of May. So we'll advertise that out. We're still looking for lots of volunteers and interested people to get involved. We've actually had a ton of interest, people wanting to do pop-up shops and really like join in the event this year. So that's been really fun to see. So yeah, stay tuned as it continues to grow. We're very excited. In other news, we have completed our product asset inventory list as well of all the tourism-based businesses within the town, MD and Sawridge. We have shared this with the reps at Travel Alberta as well. And then we'll be able to do some of our own collection with that as well in partnership with ANSA. We will be attending the High Prairie Gun Show to promote our tourism in our region, as well as we will be part of the panel at the upcoming Spark the North event here in April. We are just about to be heading out here to distribute our visitor information guide to businesses and campgrounds, as well as our top 10 things to do in the region. Members from the tourism board will also be meeting with the administration from ANSA to work out next steps for our regional expansion plan and get things moving along with this. Our admin has also finished kind of working on updates for our ATIS listings for local tourism businesses, as well as local restaurants, retail, that type of thing also. And then we will also be hosting in partnership that cultural awareness event that Frankie mentioned earlier with the ANCA in the fall of 2024, pending the grant approval for that. And that's all that's up with us for now. Thanks.
Naming advisory.
Okay. On March 27th, the naming committee met and had a final review of the suggested changes to the naming advisory bylaw and the naming development areas policy. We also changed the member term from 1 year to 3 years and staggered the term among 3 members to establish stability. The group also reviewed the names on the approved naming list. And I think we still have 1 vacancy on the naming advisory committee as well.
Municipal Planning Commission.
Again. So on April 8th, the group approved the development permit application in the Northeast Industrial Park, approved 3 land use bylaws in regards to zoning, and also approved the 6-month review of a home-based business in the Southeast.
Lesser Slave Lake Regional Waste Management.
So we met March 28th. So with proper management of incoming landfill cover soil and recycling efforts, we have saved approximately $2 million in airspace. We have likely been able to push back plans to build a new landfill cell by a couple of years, which is very welcome news. We are also looking at ways to increase the financial stability of the landfill. The province is moving towards an extended producer responsibility model, which essentially means that producers of recyclable materials are responsible for the cost of it at the end of life. We do anticipate that this will mean more recyclable material flowing into the landfill. We have been leasing a vertical baler for cardboard and plastics for quite some time, and this has been working well. However, it is somewhat time consuming. So the landfill did approve a purchase of a rebuilt horizontal baler and a Quonset at a cost of roughly $176,000. This will allow the landfill to generate more revenue, but also divert more material from the landfill. Eventually, we would hope to become a recycling hub of sorts and receive material from other communities. Between airspace saved and revenue received, we anticipate an initial net benefit of approximately $124,000 a year, which is a return on investment of less than 2 years. Lastly, 2023 looks like to be a very good year for the landfill. I've sat on the landfill commission for 7 years, and it was definitely the best year I've seen. Preliminary numbers look like we will have approximately $462,000 to allocate to reserves. This is good news as it will help us to pay for a new landfill cell. Between engineering and construction, we have costs of approximately $2.8 million, which will be coming up within the next 5 years. And that's the landfill update.
Right. Slave Lake Airport.
That's me again. So we met March 28th as well. We approved a capital project to replace the maintenance shop hangar door. The old door hadn't been opened in years, was seized and posed a safety risk. This will allow the airport to help preserve the life of its equipment by storing it indoors. Shoreline stabilization project. The shoreline is listed as an area that has a high potential to contain a historic resource. If we disturb the ground at all, it would require a full archaeological dig. This would be extremely costly and time consuming. So as such, we're looking at options that would require no digging or ground level disruption. As part of the project, we will also be consulting with 6 First Nations and 3 Métis settlements. We will be utilizing an outside consultant to help with this consultation process. And some good news is that the province recently announced a 5-year, $125 million flood and drought grant program. We do believe that we would meet the criteria for this program, and we will be applying for it when it opens. We anticipate that it would likely cover 90% of the cost for projects that are up to $3 million. We had some serious concerns about how to fund a potential shoreline stabilization project, so this is very welcome news. And lastly, the master plan is roughly 60% complete. We anticipate seeing a preliminary report later this month on it.
Counselor Adams.
Like to make a motion to accept the committee minutes as information.
Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor. And that is carried. Okay, State of the Lake. Counselor Moallem.
So I got a couple things on here. In a few weeks, Pat Potvin of Slave Lake will be riding in his 25th straight MS 150 in support of Multiple Sclerosis Society. It's a 2-day, 150-kilometer ride from Leduc to Camrose and back. This year, Multiple MS 150 is on June 22nd and 23rd. The MS 150 gets around 2,000 participants these days. After humble beginnings in 1990, it aims to raise over $2 million this year. If you'd like to donate, one way to do it is to go to the MS 150 website and search for Patrick Potvin or Dez's team, or you can email Pat Potvin directly at pat.potvin@gmail.com. I got one more.
Continue.
Continue. Okay. As the fasting month of Ramadan comes to an end, Muslims around the world are preparing for Eid al-Fitr, which means... Oh.
Apparently it's had enough, Ally. It's done.
So I'll start over again. As the fasting month of Ramadan comes to an end, Muslims around the world are preparing for Eid al-Fitr, which is the festival of breaking the fast. The 3-day festival celebrates the completion of the fasting month of Ramadan by Muslims across the world. Muslims begin Eid Day celebrations by partaking in a prayer service that takes place shortly after dawn, followed by a short sermon. Following the sermon, we will all eat a potluck breakfast together, and we'll spend the day visiting relatives and neighbors and accepting sweets as we move along from house to house. So that takes place tomorrow. Happy Eid to everyone.
Counselor Gramlich.
I just like to acknowledge on April 6th was the 6-year anniversary. Oh, I guess I should turn this on. April 6th was the 6-year anniversary of the Humboldt crash, and it not only shocked the entire country, but our region specifically was affected. The loss of Connor Lucan, the loss of Jackson Joseph, who is my friend Chris' son, and the loss of Darcy Hogan, who coached against so many of us in this community and coached some of us in this community. So thoughts are with Lauren, Robin, Colby, Kennedy, Chris, Andy, and Christina Hogan and her family.
Anything further? Counselor Adams.
Motion to adjourn.
Any further discussion? Call to question, those in favor. And that is carried.